Welcome back to Beginner Basics. We're going to learn how to do double crochet in this video. So far, if you've been following along, you've learned how to do a slip stitch, a chain stitch, a single crochet, a half double crochet. Now it's time to go up to the little bit of a big brother and do the double crochet. So join me right here and let's begin with that. I have here 13 chain stitches. If you need a refresher on how to do a chain stitch, please go check out my channel, Marley Bird, and learn how to do the chain stitch. I have my hook going through a loop, and I want to remind you that this loop on your hook does not count as a stitch. We're going to do the double crochet in the fourth chain from hook. So I'm going to count 4 chains, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to yarn over my hook. Now if you remember, you began with the yarn over for the half double crochet as well. So it's the same thing, same process. Half double, or you yarn over your hook, take your hook and go into the chain stitch of the fourth chain from hook. I'm taking my hook and I'm going from the left to the right underneath to grab some yarn. I'm going to pull it through the chain, and I'm bringing my hook up parallel to my chains. Now I have 3 loops on my hook. For a double crochet, what you need to do is yarn over your hook, draw through two loops, yarn over your hook, draw through 2 loops. At this point, I want you to grab a stitch marker and I want you to put it in the top part, the top 2 loops of the stitch that you just created. So you can see here there's that nice V, and I'm putting my stitch marker right there. That's going to help me keep my edges nice and clean and crisp. Now I'm going to move on to the next chain. That's right here. So I yarn over my hook, I go into the stitch or the chain, yarn over my hook, pull up a loop, and I have 3 loops on my hook. Yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. So we're going to do this all the way across our foundation chain. I like to start kind of singing a mantra to myself where I yarn over, go into the chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. And that completes one. Yarn over my hook, go into the chain, yarn over my hook, pull up a loop. Yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. And that's my next one. I'm going to do this all the way down my foundation chain edge. When I get to the end, I'm going to take a look at all my chains, and I'm going to, or not all my chains, all my stitches I just created to make sure I have 10 completed. Because I began with 13 chain stitches and I skipped the first 3, that leaves me with 10 double crochets. Now, I want to point out that if I have 10 double crochets, because I worked into 10 chains, that does not mean I count my beginning 3 chains as a stitch. So right here, this was my original 3 chains that we skipped. I am not going to count that as a stitch. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now in a pattern, if they wanted you to count this original chain 3 as a stitch, they would tell you, work into the 4th chain from hook, the first 3 chains count as a double crochet. The pattern will tell you what they want it to be. Now, for the next row, we need to jump up to our next level. I like to think of it as stepping up the ladder. So we've got to create the height of the double crochet by doing a chain 3. That gives us roughly the same height as a double crochet. You see that? So I've chained 3. I'm going to turn my work. And because I'm not counting my initial first chain 3 as a double crochet, I'm going to work my double crochet in my very first stitch. And you'll see it just comes right up from the very first stitch right there. I'm going under both loops, so I have the V's resting right onto the shaft of my hook. Yarn over my hook, pull up a loop. Yarn over my hook, draw through 2, yarn over my hook, draw through 2. Now, at this point, just like before, I'm going to grab a stitch marker and I'm going to put it into the top chains, the top loops, I should say, of the stitch I just created, okay? That lets me know that these chains I started off with, my turning chains, they are not the last stitch of this row. It's actually that one right there. So now I'm going to have a nice clean edge when I get down there. I move along by going to my next stitch. I can see my nice V right there. Take my hook, go into that hole, which puts the V right on my shaft of my hook. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. Let's do that again. Go into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. If I completely, I'm going to set this down for a second, get myself some more yarn, starts to eat it up a little bit. The double crochet is a little bit taller than the single crochet, or no, it's a little bit taller than the half double. It's a lot taller than the single, and so it starts to eat up a little bit more of your yarn. But at the same time, you start to get a taller stitch, which you get more fabric. So it goes a lot faster when you're working a double crochet pattern into your piece, because you're getting that height in the pattern stitch. And so as I'm going along, you'll see I'm coming up to my marker that I used last time. And now I know that that marked stitch, this marked stitch right here, that's the last stitch of this row. So I yarn over, go into that stitch. I don't have to take the marker out at this point. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. Going up to the next level, so I'm going to do my chain 3. I'm going to turn. Again, I'm not going to be working into these chain 3 stitches because they are not going to count as a stitch for this example. Yarn over my hook, go into the top stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And now what I can do is undo this marker that I used for the row before and move it up. So I come up here, put it through the top of the stitch I just created, and now I've moved up my row so I'll have a nice clean edge as I go along. Now here's a little designer tip, you guys. Sometimes as you're working up to the next row, you'll see that a pattern will write down a chain 3, but you're like, oh, you know what, I really don't know if I like that because I kind of get this puckered edge. Let me show you. See how it kind of puckers out right there? And it puckers out over here, okay? So if you're not going to count those first turning chains as a stitch, sometimes you can get by with just doing a chain 2 and jumping right into your double crochets, and it makes the edge a little bit cleaner. It's something that I will often do if I'm making a piece that's going to stand alone and my edges are going to be the finished piece of the garment. I think it looks really good and clean. I'm going to set this aside and pull one in that I've already worked up because I want to show you a couple things. If you were watching the beginner basics video for half double crochet, you'll recognize the blue portion down here. This teal color, or the lighter blue, was my foundation chain. The darker blue, I worked a lot of half double crochets. There were 4 rows of half double crochets. And then I've brought the teal, or the lighter blue, back in again, and I've done 1, 2, 3 rows of double crochets. I'm on my 4th. I want to fold this in half, and I want you to see how you get the height difference. So here we are, we're on our 4th row of double crochets, and see how it's already taller than 4 rows of half double crochets? Pretty cool, right? So just by adding that extra yarn over and draw through 2 when the stitches or the loops are on your hook, you get that extra height. You're making a taller stitch. Does that make sense? Right here you can see that I have my marked stitch at the end of the row, my marked stitch at the end of this row, and then if I wanted to put my work away, I use a stitch marker into my free loop, so that way as this pulls, it doesn't go anywhere and I'm good to go. So we have learned how to do the chain stitch, the single crochet, the half double crochet, now the double crochet. There's one more I want to make sure that you guys learn, so come back here to my channel, Marley Bird, and you will learn how to do the treble crochet.